guys, welcome to A Little Bit of Monica. It is time for another mid-month check-in. If you saw my video from September, this mid-month check-in is something that I'm starting to kind of help me keep up with sharing my reviews and being able to do like wrap-ups without having to remember an entire month's worth of reviews and detailed opinions on the books that I've been reading. And so this is just an easier way to break things up a little bit by doing a mid-month check-in and then an end-of-month check-in. I am super excited to share the many books that I've already read in October, and I still don't know how I've managed to get through so many so fast, but we are going to get into it, and I'm going to share a little bit of progress on my TBR and like goals for the month, because I also feel like this has just been a really solid month for me so far. So let's just jump right into it. So far, I have read 12 books. 12 books in like 2.5 weeks. I don't understand how this has happened. Some months 12 books is all I get through, and I am already on track to be beating that rate, which it's never a race. And I am truly enjoying so many of the books that I'm reading. It's just crazy to me that somehow I've managed to get through so many books. So the first book that I read in October was The Prospects by K.T. Hoffman. This is a baseball sports romance about the first openly gay and trans baseball player, and I really loved this story. I really loved the relationship. I will warn you, I think that the ratio of sports to romance was a little heavier on the sports side than I'm used to. Like, if you don't actually find any interest in baseball whatsoever, you might not care about this book, because it is a lot. They are playing baseball the whole way through the book. Like, there's a lot of actual sport talk and sport play, as well as a really, really beautiful romance that I genuinely loved so much. And I just feel like the balance could have been a little bit better, but I still loved it. But yeah, this book I ended up giving 4 stars. I really, really loved it, and I have the very beautiful Afterlight edition, so I am excited to be able to keep this one on my shelves, because one of my goals this year is to be really working through some of the special edition books that I have and clearing them off my shelves if I don't like them, and I'm really excited to be able to keep that one. Thank you for visiting me on my chair, Kovu, but we are moving on to the next book now. Up next in October, at the very beginning of the month, I read The 5-Year Lie by Serena Bowen, and this was for the Between the Covers book club hosted by Melissa from Book Bar, and I ended up having a decent time with this book. I gave it 3 stars. This is a thriller about a woman who gets a text from a person that she thought had been dead for 5 years, and now she is beginning to question everything. And I think that the way this story unfolded was really fun to follow. Once I got through the beginning where everything was getting set up, I do feel like the story progressed pretty quickly, and there is a really nice romantic subplot going on under this thriller. This author is a primarily romance author, I believe, and so this was kind of being thrown into the thriller world, and I think that it did mesh the two very, very well. So I ended up having fun, and the ending was very intense. There was a scene that I actually am still thinking about that was done so well and just kept me captivated. I wasn't fully invested for the majority of the book. Like, the middle section of it, I don't know, something about it just kind of lost me a little bit. The ending really picked it back up, but that's why I gave this 3 stars, because I feel like it was a really good book, but for me, it just wasn't giving me the type of excitement that I'm looking for when I read a thriller. Next up for the month was Heartstopper Volume 5, and I can't believe that this was the first time I was reading Heartstopper Volume 5. I have read the other 4 already, and I needed to binge this really, really quick, because Heartstopper Season 3 came out on Netflix, and I started watching and then found out that this newest book was in the show, and so I needed to read the book first. So I did that. I honestly read this in like maybe an hour. It is such a quick read because it's a graphic novel, but it's a beautiful, beautiful story. I love Heartstopper. I love the graphic novels and the show. Everything about it. It's just so cute. I was very emotional while reading it as well. So this is just really exciting. I believe there's one more book coming in the series. It's not done yet, so we have a little bit of time to wait, but I had to make sure that I got this reading in so that I could finish the rest of the newest season that came out, and I'm really hoping that they're going to renew it for a final season of the show, because I need this to be done in completion. Okay, and now the next book up is book 1 in a series, and so far this month I have read 3 of the 4 books in the series. I am in the middle of literally at 50% of book 4, but I'm not going to share my review on that one just yet because I'm not done. But I read books 1 through 3 of the Reynolds Protective Group, and this is by Dr. Rebecca Sharp. I have been reading these on KU and with my Audible audiobook. The 4 books in this series are Archer, Hunter, Gunner, and Ranger. It is 4 brothers, the Reynolds brothers, and they own a like security company, and each book focuses on one of the brothers. The books are named after them. I don't want to get into how I feel about the names being Archer, Hunter, Gunner, and Ranger, but that's beside the point. These are romances where the formula is kind of similar, in which they all have like a damsel in distress that they have to protect for their security company, but they end up forming really strong relationships, and I really like the actual romance. I like the story. It's very honestly fast-paced and it keeps me captivated. I do feel like books 1 and 2 are very, very similar in what happens to the main female character, but ultimately I still had a really, really good time. And then book 3 takes a different kind of tone, but was also very fun. Now book 4 is the one that I'm currently in, Ranger, and I can't really say too much just because I'm still in the middle of it, but I am really having fun, and I love that these books are marketed by the author as being inspired by the men from Criminal Minds, and like Criminal Minds is one of my very favorite shows, so of course I had to try these books out. So I'm buddy reading these with Michelle, and we're having a great time. So far I've given all 3 of the first 3 books 4 stars, so that's a good sign. I have no idea how book 4 is gonna go, but I'm excited to find out the rest of it. The next book up was an ARC that I had. This one came straight from the author Christopher Robertson, and it is The Cotton Candy Massacre Part Treats. This is book 3 in the Cotton Candy Massacre series, and I was so excited for this book because I gave both of the first 2 books 5 stars. Obsessed. These are splatterpunk horror, absolutely gruesome carnage, but like the funnest time just watching people get slaughtered across a carnival or in a fun house. It's messed up, but I loved the first 2. So I was very excited for book 3 that is themed around a like heavy metal concert, and so this book was set up to be super great. I was a little disappointed with how things played out. It was marketed as being this like heavy metal, this concert kind of vibe, and the concert was not nearly as central as I thought it was going to be. It did take place at this concert, but the concert was part of a larger town festival that also was a carnival. Book 1 is all about a carnival and evil clowns that kill everybody. So to have this book 3 come back and also take place at a carnival, now it takes place across the whole town, so the scope is a lot larger here, but the fact that it did take place at the carnival again just felt very repetitive. Some of the things that happened in book 3 felt like I had already read them in book 1, and so that was a little disappointing. And then the concert part was really cool, and I do like the way that Christopher Robertson brings you in and helps you like really connect to the characters despite there being a million things going on. And one of my favorite things about the series is the way that the books are set up, as they're like describing it as if you were watching a movie, including language like cut to, this is happening, and split screen, these 2 things are happening simultaneously, because it wants to give you that experience that you're watching a horror movie. And I think that's really fun, and that definitely works. But something about this book was not as exciting to me as the first 2 books were. I ended up giving it 3 stars. I still really liked it, and I'm still excited that it's a part of the series, and I believe that there is another book planning to be written and coming next year, hopefully, maybe, which I'm very excited for. But ultimately, I don't know, just something about this one didn't feel like it flowed as much. It didn't feel the same as the first 2 did, but this one was still a very fun time for people who love the carnage, the splatterpunk vibes. It's definitely there. And there is a really fun raccoon character named Twizzler that honestly steals the show. I just feel like I can't even talk about this book without talking about Twizzler being so iconic in this whole book. That's it. That's all I've got to say. And then because apparently I'm just like really in the mood for heavy metal carnage, I decided to read another one of my Neck Alley arcs, and this was Try Not to Die at Death Fest by Mark Tullis and Glenn Hedden. And this is my first time reading a Try Not to Die, but they have like a number of books that take place at different settings, and this is an interactive like choose your own adventure story, which I was so excited for. I remember reading these types of books when I was younger, and like they were so fun to see how your choices end up playing out in the story. So I was very intrigued by the setup of this one. I think this book has already been out before, and maybe it's just getting like a reprint, which is why I ended up getting the arc for it, but I am so happy I did because I had a really fun time with it. I ended up giving this book 3 stars, and I think it's mostly because a lot of the things that happened in the book felt like your choices really did not matter. They didn't actually impact things the way that you would expect. So the whole point of this book is there are 30 ways at least that you can die in the story, but there's only one correct path to get the whole way through first try. Now, because of reading this on Kindle, it came with really nice links that like you click which option you want and it takes you to that page. And if you picked one that you die, it tells you to try again and it takes you back to make the selection again. So it does make it very easy to get back into the story and pick another choice. But here's the thing, a lot of times I would pick the option that actually makes logical sense and like the most unhinged thing would happen. I can't even tell you how ridiculous it felt to be getting slashed with a sword or eaten by a bear or thrown hot oil in my face. Like to have those be the things that killed me in the story when like the choice that you make should have absolutely nothing to do with those deaths. It just felt very disconnected in a lot of ways. However, I thought it was hilarious. I was having the most fun time, like laughing at myself. I died a total of 11 times while reading this book. So there were 11 times that I genuinely made a decision thinking this is the best choice and I still died. And I just think that's hilarious. And some of the ridiculous ways of dying, literally my first death, I got killed by a sword and I laughed so hard because I'm like, where did that sword even come from? Who had a sword at a metal concert? Like, I don't understand. It's for friends who go to this heavy metal concert and then weird things start to happen and people start to go crazy and they have to try to escape. And like, I just don't understand why there's a bear. I don't understand why there's a sword. Like the things that happened, it was absolutely unhinged. So it was a fun time, but ultimately I do think the writing, it had a little bit to be desired, but also the flow. And like when I'm doing an interactive story like this, I want my decision to feel like it's connected to what happens afterward. And in this case, it felt completely random. Like I also got bitten by a vampire. Why were there vampires at this festival? I don't know, but it was fun. And if you are in for a good time, I want to read some of the other Try Not to Dies. I just haven't had a chance yet. So maybe give them a try and see. They are just like a fun, good time, but like you can't take it seriously because none of the decisions made any sort of sense. But anyway, that's the end of my heavy metal festival vibe for the month. I read 2 and that was plenty. The next book up that I read was my third arc of the month and I am just really excited to have actually gotten through these. So this one is Wish I Were Here by Melissa Weisner. And I have another book by this author, The Second Chance Year. I haven't read it yet, but this makes me very excited because I gave this book 5 stars. I loved this book. I demolished it in one day. I also read Try Not to Die in one day and then I read this one in one day and I cannot express to you how like giddy this book made me. I thought it was so fun and it was so cute. It's about a woman who tries to get a new job and then discovers that all the paperwork doesn't go through because her identity no longer exists. She genuinely has no social security number, no driver's license. Everyone's like, I don't know what to tell you because those things don't exist. You aren't a real person. She's like, I'm clearly standing in front of you, but everyone thinks that she's lying and everybody thinks that she's trying to be a criminal. So she ends up pairing up with the doorman, the really like kind of goofy, quirky doorman for her apartment building, and they team up and he helps her try to get her identity back, and he ends up getting his family to help. His family being a very wide stretched community type of group of people who like may or may not be in the mob, but like it's such a fun time. His family was so fun. It was like one of my favorite elements of the book. I just love the way that his family really like came together to help him and her through connection, even though they like had no idea who she was. But my other favorite part of this book is the fact that the apartment building they live in is all old people, and so she is constantly interacting with these old people and having so much fun, like seeing the joy of life that they still have even in their old age. And I just think it was a really, really cute story, also because the doorman loves these old people and is like their best friend, and it's just so cute. And watching their romance bloom as they are working together and like learning to cope with each other's quirks. Plus, obviously, you know, by the end of the book, things are going to kind of unravel and come to a really big kind of revelation. And what I love about this book is it has a really strong romance feel with the fantasy vibe of the like magically lost your identity, but throughout the whole story it ends up being a really deep dive into self-discovery, because this main character, the whole book, is trying to figure out who she is, and when she loses her legal identity, she then starts to question her personal identity and starts to look at who she is and what she wants out of life. And I just thought it was a really, really precious kind of story. story, and I loved it so much. I had so much fun. So this one definitely got 5 stars. As soon as I finished, I was like, wow, this did it for me. And I'm so glad I had the ARC for this one, although I think it already came out on the 15th. So make sure you go read this book because it was so much fun. Next up, and this is another book that I binged all in one day, I read Mayfly by CJ Lead because CJ Lead was going to be at an event at the Harrisburg Book Festival that I was going to. It was a 50 years of Stephen King celebration night. No, Stephen King was not there, but CJ Lead along with 3 other authors were going to be there, and I had not read Mayfly yet. So I decided to try. Now, the good thing is my Libby hold came in for the audio the day of the event. So that means I had like 4 hours to binge read this book. I got 80% of the way through before the event started, and I finished the rest of it when I got home. But it was so much fun to get to hear CJ talk about this book and what it is to be a horror writer, as well as the other authors as well. But this book was so fun. I ended up giving it 4 stars. This is obviously horror. It's a lot of body horror. The main character, Maeve, is so violent and unhinged, and she meets someone else who has some very similar tastes for violence. But I think one of the fun things about this book is that she starts off being a Disney princess. Like, she works as a Disney princess in the park, and like that vibe then thrown into being like a violent, murderous, really messed up person was super fun and like super disturbing. And I was listening to the audio in the car on the way to the event, and I happened to listen to the curling iron scene. And let's just say my hands were gripping the wheel and I was blinking very dramatically as I'm listening to what is unfolding with the curling iron and the soft-boiled egg. And there's just a lot that goes on in this book, but it was so fun. And then getting to talk to the author a little bit after the event was super fun. And I ended up getting the book signed, which was really exciting. So I just love being able to go to these events. And I'm thankful that I got the audio in on the day of so that I could finish this book very quickly. Next up is my most disappointing book of this month, probably the whole month if I had to guess, but the month's not over, so I don't want to say anything. I read Mistress of Lies by K.M. Enright, and by read I mean tried to read. I DNF'd this at 50%, which is why I am still going to talk about it a bit, because I read quite a bit of the book. However, I was reading this for about a week and I couldn't get past 50%. I just had no desire to keep picking it up. The book was slow. To me, it was boring. It's about vampires, but they're called blood workers. And I'm gonna be for real. This is so political about the main character trying to like undermine the king, and it's like treason and espionage, and like it's just a lot going on that I did not care about. The politics of it all didn't really work for me, and so I just did not care. Now, there are 3 main characters who I think were leading up to some sort of triangle of love that I was really excited for, but I didn't get that far because I couldn't do it. The problem with this is that it is so pretty, because this is the Illumicrate copy, and this is quite literally one of my favorite naked hardcovers that I've ever seen in my entire life, as well as the sprayed edges, and it breaks my heart that I DNF'd this book because I want to keep this. But I told myself that I was going to be getting rid of my special editions if I didn't like them, and since I didn't like this one enough to finish it, it means I probably have to get rid of it. Now, I may or may not keep it on my shelves just so I can look at it being pretty for a little longer, but yeah, ultimately this one just didn't work. I don't know what it was. Slow, too political, it just wasn't for me, and I'm very sad about it. And now the final book that I finished so far this month is another NetGalley arc, and this one I've had for a long time, but the book comes out on October 29th, so I'm excited that I read it before the release date. This Girl's a Killer by Emma C. Wells, and this is a thriller about a vigilante justice serial killer. She is a badass who basically kills the monsters of the world, the people who fly under the radar and hurt people, and she was tired of it, so she took it into her own hands. And then when someone comes into her personal life that she feels may not deserve to continue on with life, she again has to take a look and see, what can I do about this? How do I protect the people I love? She has a best friend and a goddaughter that she is protecting with her life, and I love the found family element here, where she is taking care of these people in a world where her actual blood family meant really nothing to her. And I really love the exploration here into that friendship that she has with her best friend. But so much of this book is just her trying to evade capture, or like not capture because the police don't know who she is, but she is trying so hard to cover her tracks and make sure sure that nobody can ever figure out what she does and who she is. And it's just a really fast-paced story that had me so stressed and so tense for this entire freaking book. I gave it 5 stars simply because the feelings I had while reading this book, I couldn't put it down because I was afraid of what was going to happen, and I didn't know how this book was going to end. I truly did not know if by the end of the book she was going to end up in prison, because I've read books where that happens, or if she was going to end up not getting caught, because I've read books where that happens. And so this entire book, the question of what's going to happen, I don't know if she's going to get caught or not, really had my like energy super, super high, because it was just so high energy and so fun, and I loved it. I just had so much fun with it. And then as if I didn't love it enough, the last chapter solidified everything for me, because there was a very real life situation that the author not so subtly called out and hinted at, and it really just felt like it brought the book to life more and put a lot of things into perspective of what we experience in our real life and in the news and the media of these monsters that we really do have in our world. And I just think this was a super, super interesting dive into this world, but also keeping it fictional and letting it be a really fun and stressful experience of reading. So I just loved it. I had so much fun. It was great. And now for my final update of the mid-month check-in, I will let you know what I'm currently reading. So I did mention before I'm reading book 4 of the Reynolds Protective Group series, which is called Ranger, and this is about the like Spencer Reed heavily inspired carbon copied character in this book series. And so I'm in the middle of that one, but I am also in the middle of It by Stephen King. This has been coming for a long time. I've been talking to a couple people about doing a buddy read, and I decided to end up doing the buddy read here. And I ended up starting this the day after the Stephen King event, which is also really funny. But this book is over 1,100 pages. I am scared of how long this is, but so far I'm about 300 pages in and having a fantastic time. This book is so creepy, it's so weird, it's so dark, and the audiobook is spectacular. I mean, truly, I love the audio. The narrator is doing a fantastic job of bringing life to the words and making every sentence feel urgent. He has this ability to make the lines that are shouted or the lines that feel like visceral pain, he makes it feel real, and I really, really value that in an audiobook. So I absolutely love the way that the narrator is doing this. But I also want to share something really exciting that I started over the weekend while I was kind of starting up this It read along. I have a new Discord server that I'm really, really excited for, and it just started, but I am going to be hosting a monthly Stephen King read along in which I'm going to pick a different Stephen King book every single month, and we're going to read them over the winter. I think we're going to try to do some winter reads, ones that are the best to read when it's cold or snowy. And so that's kind of the intention, but we are going to pick a different book every month, and the people who participate are going to have a voice in what books we are choosing. So I think we might have a couple of options lined up for the first few months, but if you are interested in doing a Stephen King read along with me, please join my Discord server. The link will be in the description. I'm very, very excited for this because this is a really great time to get through books that I feel ridiculous for not having read yet, because I love reading, I love horror. How have I not read all of these Stephen King books yet? But I need to get through them. I want to get through them, and so I want you to join me too if this is something you've been interested in, or if you want to reread them, because I have heard that rereading these books is just as fun as reading it the first time, and that makes me very excited too. Even if you don't read Stephen King or horror, I plan to be doing some buddy reads and read-alongs of other things too. I'm going to be reading the Chestnut Springs series by Elsie Silver very soon, so that's going to be in there, and it's going to be in my Discord. So if you have an interest in buddy reading, or this is going to be kind of like a loose kind of book club, and so if you're interested in joining, please hit that link and come on into the Discord so we can chat. I have recommendation areas, I have lots of things that we can talk about books, but also it's not going to be just for horror and Stephen King. I am going to read some other books as well, or just share more about my ongoing reading progress while I'm in there. So make sure to join that if you are interested. I have such a long way to go in this book, but I'm really excited because I'm having such a fun time. But that brings me to the end of this video, all of my updates for this month so far. The fact that we're only halfway through and I've read 12 books, what? It feels crazy, but also I love it. I'm very excited to see what the rest of this month holds. I know that I have a couple of things that are going to keep me busy here coming up, so I'm not quite sure I'm going to get through 12 more this month, but just the idea of being able to start so strong this month feels so good. I would love to hear your thoughts if you've read any of these books already, or if you plan to read any of them. Please share with me your opinions. If you liked this video and you want to see more from me, or you want to stay tuned for my end of the month wrap up and my TBRs and everything that I have coming, please hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on anything. I am very excited for some of the things that I have planned coming up, and I can't wait for you to see them as well. I want to thank you so much for watching this video, and I hope I will see you in the next one. Bye!